Hi, I'm Tim Ellis. Thanks for joining me for Laneway Live. Tonight's special guest is the only person who Penn and Teller have ever told, "We were wrong, you fooled us." Please welcome Simon Coronel.
Oh, hi. How you doing?
I'm doing well. It looks like you are in a little magician's garage of, I don't know, you've got all these little boxes of
Oh,
knickknacks,
yeah, pretty much.
aren't you?
This is basically my how I attempt to stay sane and quasi-organized it's basically sort of a physical filing cabinet for just stuff. I have three more shelves like this around the apartment, and it's just the least bad system I've yet found to keep all my crap in order.
And I
Whereas
assume,
this is the actual filing cabinet behind me. That's all the paperwork and documents and other crap.
but I assume they're not actual magic tricks in the boxes. They're like little tiny gimmicks and hardware.
It's honestly, it's a variety of stuff. I mean, this one's labeled coin in bottle stuff. That's just a whole bunch of crap for different forms of coin and bottle. This one's just labeled balloons. That's just where I store balloons of any type for anything or whatever. So it's a mixture of just miscellaneous equipment storage. And this one's memory lane. That's where I just keep memory stuff. You know, like invites to parties, notes people have written me, anything to bring it. So it's like an even combination of just real life stuff, magic stuff, everything else. Most like 80% magic stuff, but mostly based on the research and development side of it.
So your lockdown in LA is basically, you're quite happy with all your toys to play with.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, my life's barely changed, except there's less pressure to go and do things, which is honestly quite refreshing. I mean, it sucks for the world, but I was born for this. Introverts rise up.
So you were on a cruise ship when this happened, or just finished a cruise contract?
I mean, depends on which you mean, because it was a gradual escalation, the whole world. But when LA's actual official lockdown rules hit, I had just got back from 2.5 months of just insane pinball travel all over the place, and we had been thinking for weeks, God damn, I can't wait to get back and just sit on the couch for 3 weeks. That was actually what I'd been thinking. And I'd also blocked out the next month or two even to work on this Magic Puzzle Company project, which we'll get to, that has been sort of one of the big focuses of my life in the background over the past year, and get it ready for its actual launch. And so the timing for me, I think I'm the only magician who I've had no gigs canceled. Like, I had no gigs lined up that I've actually canceled. The only two things I had were cruise ships in like August and October that are still theoretically booked, on the assumption things will resume by then, but we'll see. They might finally get cancelled at some point.
So your life has been almost just a non-stop synchronicity. You started off doing a little bit of magic in the Melbourne, was it Melbourne or Monash Uni Magic Club?
Melbourne Uni
Club.
Club.
And then you went straight into a nice cushy corporate sector job and did magic as a hobby.
If by cushy you mean like spirit crushing, soul destroying, insane hours, unbelievably high stress, and a decent paycheck, yes. Like that was 5 brutal years, but they were really, in hindsight, I'm really glad that I did that, because a lot of the stuff I learned from that experience, it's in sort of high-end corporate, has been really useful in terms of management and everything else.
But you say spiritually crushing, soul crushing, hard pressure. Isn't that like what cruise ships have been for you?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's a different kind of crushing. It hits you from a different perspective. It's helping big rich companies get bigger and richer, and or doing work that has no real positive effect on the world, versus pouring your heart and soul into an act to have people make bad magic jokes at you about it the whole time. So it's 6 of one, half a dozen. Like, yeah, it's pick your poison, really.
Well, you did a whole column in Magic Magazine about all the things that people say to you. You actually did a study, a pseudo-scientific study.
Yeah. Well, that was on the Things by Simon blog. That was post Magic Magazine. But yeah, I kept an actual log of the things they said, just because at least then I was sublimating it into something creative or constructive, as opposed to just enduring it. And that article is still up. And I think that one came out pretty well.
So give us an example of the sort of stuff that you get within maybe an hour on a cruise ship as you're just hanging out.
Oh, I mean, just endless variants of the it's just jokes implying that you can actually do magic in a dumb way. Oh, you're eating lunch, you're making that sandwich disappear there. And anything appearing, disappearing, transforming, any joke about any of those things, as you know, ceased to be funny about a decade ago, or 3, or whatever.
But I think your outcome was that they're saying them with the best of intentions.
Yeah, and that was what a lot of people, including most recently Teller, kind of called me on my bullshit of going, look, all the problems you're facing in the world, like people are saying these things because they've enjoyed what you've done and are positively connecting with it. And that's at least a thing to be celebrated, even if their form of showing that leaves something to be desired.
Well, that was in your Teller podcast, wasn't it? It just happened to...
Yeah, this is my accidental podcast that is really... I still think of it really as Nick Paul's podcast that I just happened to be this accidental partner in. And Nick being Nick's really effective. Nick gets things done. I like and respect Nick. Nick does good shit. When the quarantine hit, started getting a high frequency of guests for us to interview going at the quarantine sessions, makes sense. And said, hey, try and get Teller. And I'm like, yeah, actually, that's probably not a bad idea. Hey, Teller, want to be on a podcast? You can totally say no. It's totally cool. No pressure. It's cool, man. He's like, yeah, sure. And I'm like, oh shit, okay. So that's how Teller ended up on the podcast. It came out really well. I was really happy with the episode. There are a lot of the overwhelming majority of things I've ever sort of creatively produced, I've been mostly unhappy with. But that's fine. You keep going. You keep trying to make them better each time. But that's one of the few I'm like, yeah, this is actually a good listen. It's a good episode. It's solid.
So your connection with Teller began on Fool Us, of course.
It did. Hang on. I don't know if it did. I'm trying to remember. There might have been one half beat that came before it. That was where it really happened. I think I had actually had some overlap with him. That's right. Way back, I was at this conference called the EG conference, organized by Mike Hawley, who was a friend of one of the people who founded the TED conferences, Richard Saul Wurman, way back before Chris Anderson took over TED. And Mike had put Teller and I in touch because I think I was going to Vegas, and Mike knows Teller because they've done some things together, and Mike's just a complete mensch of a human being, as is Teller. And so we'd exchanged an email about years earlier, but it was a very trivial interaction. But it was just another little drop in the bucket. But then, yeah, Fool Us happened, and that was its own crazy saga, but went in many different weird directions.
Well, the weirdest direction, of course, was the fact you were invited back to see the audience without really being told what you were sent there for.
Yeah, it's still the first and only time that's ever happened in the history of the show. The very short version, speaking of blogs, I've spent literally years now trying to write actually the story of what happened on Fool Us, because it's a long, complex twists and turns and multi-layers and everything story. And it's nearly ready. It's, because it's a tough story to get right. I want to make sure I do it justice. But the short version is, we're on the show, and as you know, you can really, there's this dichotomy on the show, and it doesn't have to be A or B, but it often tends to lean one way or the other. You either pick obscure method material that you think might fool them because the methods are obscure, or you pick just really good stuff that's going to play well and make you look good on TV because it's your A material. Now, as we know, good methods tend to become well known, and so you tend to use them because they're good, and that becomes your good material. And I basically went with the latter. So I went just, let's do some routines that are good material and have almost no chance of fooling them, because that's a whole fool's errand potentially. I didn't really think I had anything that would be entertaining and obscure enough to fool them. And so did the poker chip 3-fly that I didn't think would fool them at all.
Now think about it, no matter how quickly I can move, there's no way to do that without you seeing some kind of blur of motion. Right? Speed alone isn't going to cut it. We usually do what's called misdirection, distract you. Looks a little bit like this. You focus your attention in one spot so that you don't see the move happening. Okay, that was a little bit too quick. You didn't know what to expect. That wasn't fair. Give you a second chance. Watch more closely this time. Roger green. See, the reason why this works is even if you watch the chips really, really closely. Hey guys. You can't at the same time be watching what my fingers are doing down at the knuckle. You can't also be watching my wrists at the same time. Or even if there's something going on at my elbows. Or up at my face. Get distracted for that split second, that's enough to do something sneaky, as previously mentioned. Now the thing is, the distraction has to be subtle. If I do it too obviously, it looks like this. Oh my god, a naked showgirl. I'm guessing anyone not see that? Good, okay, just making sure. But the thing is, while you're laughing, you can see the hand put that across, obviously, but you don't notice. Subtlety. But to be honest, there's backup plans. Even if the misdirection fails and you are burning the chips with your eyes, as you guys are right now. Look, the good year blip. No one looks away at all. You got the backup plan of sleight of hand, the dexterity. Remember that from earlier? You can just get that chip straight across and back and through the pocket and in a different location. And then finally, straight across through the fine art of misdirection.
Threw in a couple of red herrings to see if they would maybe guess it was a shell or something, because the version I do is ungaffed, at least at the moment. And they unsurprisingly said, yeah, we love it, it's great, you're great, blah, blah, but we are familiar with 3-fly. And I'm like, oh, yeah, no shit, of course they are. And then months later, Teller was talking to their props guy. I found this out from the props guy, because he and I had got along really well, because I had to use custom chips they'd made to avoid real casino logos, like the ones I used. He was a cool guy, Dutch Merrick, the props department manager. And he told me that Teller had spoken to him and said, hey, by the way, what was the gaff on Coronel's chips? I was curious. It was a really beautiful routine. I don't know what the gaffs were. And Dutch informed Teller, no, there were no gaffs. And Teller was fried by this. He was like, wait, what? What do you mean? What do you mean no gaffs? Of course they were. Like, wait, that was just sleight of hand? What the? And so even though it's very nebulous, what fools you, what does that even mean? It's a very arbitrary scale at the best of times. Teller absolutely felt fooled by that. And so that was where the plan hatched to eventually, when they realized they had this April Fool's Day special to do some weird things on, that idea came up to bring Coronel back. And I genuinely didn't know. I suspected when they said, hey, do you want to come back on the show and just hang out? And like kind of like a chat show, don't do any magic for the April Fool's Day special. And oh, Prius, bring your poker chips. I'm like, okay. I know what I'm hoping is going to happen, because I knew about how Teller felt about what had gone down. But I definitely did not know until it actually happened on air that they got dragged me out to do that.
It was like an amazing surprise birthday party.
Yeah, right. And it was actually even better than that, because everyone I've encountered on that show, the whole production team, are all such cool people. Everyone was really professional and friendly. And when I got there for that Fool's Day special, a lot of the people, because they were filming the next season as well. So there were a lot of magicians there in Vegas with their tricks ready to perform. And so a lot of the staff in hair and makeup and production and lighting were going, oh, you know, what trick are you doing? I'm like, well, I'm actually not. I'm here. Do you know anything about this? I'm here for this thing. They're like, oh, news to me. I don't know. So no one knew anything, apparently. Like everyone was just playing dumb. And then afterwards I got off with now my trophy, and it was this idiot grin on my face, and everyone's going, gotcha, we knew. Like the whole crew basically played dumb, and it was great. It was a really cool moment.
Well, where is the trophy? I can't see it on your shelves anywhere.
It's, well, the problem, all right, this is relevant, because basically I keep it behind my TV, mainly because it's really freaking spiky. Like those are very, very sharp points. It's beautifully made. Like it's a really just nice, solid piece of acrylic, but very sharp edges, and California, earthquake prone. So this is a very, very dangerous, like this is not going up anywhere or it could fall. Like this is easily a murder weapon. You could just bludgeon the crap out of someone with this. So I keep it like down low and safe, sort of tucked away.
It's only a matter of time before someone is killed by an FU trophy.
Yeah, pretty much. It is. They're beasts of like thick, really hard acrylic.
Now, when you competed at FISM for the first time in Beijing in 2009, again, that was the situation of, do you want to do your A stuff or do you want to fool the judges?
Yeah.
And also me being a judge.
Yeah, I know, right? Which is one of my, like, I mean, FISM's great. Love me a FISM, go FISM. But like one of the things that does bother me is there is this sort of concept of fooling the judges, which to me, either put that in the scoring or don't factor it in. Like pick one.
Good
like
point.
pick one and stick with it. And it's fine. It's still good for Magic and yay.
And your mission at the first FISM was to do a close-up act, which ended up by producing a person on the table.
Yeah, and that was, God, how did that idea even? I can't even remember where that idea came from, because that was based on an act I did at a good old ASM, good old Australian Society of Magicians, that fine, robust organization, at one of their big competitions back in, it would have been 2007. And that's right, it was because they did that big competition for their centenary that had a $2,000 first prize. And that was, was none too shabby. That was worth aiming at. And I somehow had this idea. Again, I always had this obsession with close-up magic. Was my first true passion in magic. That was always, I still think it's the best form of it. It's tragically the least financially and or career viable, but still creatively, artistically, when you're up close to it, it's the best. And it always bothered me that it didn't get the same respect that stage magic, because people go for scale. And I don't think that's ever likely to change, but it is what it is. And so I had this idea to do like a big scale trick in a close-up environment. Because actually it was something Eugene Berger wrote way back that, again, in terms of taxonomies, close-up magic is defined by your physical proximity to your audience. If you can reach out and touch them, you are close up to them, and therefore it is close-up magic. If you do, if you're doing it on stage and projected, it is intrinsically not close-up because you're not close to them. It's small object magic. FISM calls it micro magic, which, while sort of cheesy and European as a term, I think is a much better description because it is small object magic. And Eugene said, if you did zigzag, the zigzag person close up, that would then be close-up magic. It is not a stage illusion. It is a piece of close-up with a big object. And I was just thinking about that and thinking about sort of wanting to sort of make that point, and hence the idea, of making a person appear, and found a way to do it. And that was another skin of the teeth, seat of the pants. Glad it barely came off in time, kind of thing.
And the method was so diabolical.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it reminds me of those old victory carton illusions. Like the method doesn't have to be technological and complex to be deceptive. I was surprised how many people it actually fooled. I figured that method would fool people for about 10 seconds, and those would be 10 great seconds. They go, what the? And then be able to backtrack. But by then they'd feel amazed and it would still be good. But a surprising number of magicians were just fooled and mystified. I think maybe because when you see a big scale thing like that happen, your brain makes you think it must have been something clever and complex. And so you don't suspect the possibly obvious thing.
And that wasn't a trick you ever considered putting on Fool Us?
Shit, that's actually not a bad idea. I'd never thought of that. I think it was because I had so much sort of almost PTSD from FISM Online that I just wanted to just forget that act and just never do it again. Except it did happen a couple of times when I was talked into it with a good enough deal. But oh God, it was. And that was both the FISM routines, 2009 and 2012, have basically never been performed since because they were just such logistical nightmares.
But 2012 was, I can remember when you came to the Melbourne Magic Festival and said, hey, here's the act, and you did it. Yeah. And we all had a chat.
Everyone's like, yeah. I think that was probably the most stressful week of my entire life. That sort of between the, this isn't really going to cut it, and then actual FISM of finding a way to bring that thing. I'm still astonished that worked out well.
It was a great example of, a magic community coming together to help each other. It was fantastic.
Yeah, big time.
And
my God, the amount of people that act wouldn't have worked without.
And the fact that you were actually on the plane making props on the flight from Melbourne to London.
Yeah. Literally. And then I just actually found an old photo somewhere of, I was making props on the plane from Melbourne to London, then making props in the hotel in London where myself, Dave Lee, and his brother Alex were sort of sharing this tiny hotel room. I was like continuing to assemble props and rehearse and test and like remake them. And then we were scripting on the train from London up to Blackpool. and then like making more props in the hotel in Blackpool, then rehearsing in the lobby of our we were in the janky little hotel far away from the main one, and rehearsing in the lobby at about 2 a.m. when no one was around. And the trippy thing about that act was performed for an actual audience once. It was rehearsed, but not in front of an audience in its final form. Many earlier forms have performed in front of many crowds, but yeah, that act happened once ever, never before or since.
And the funny thing with FISM, of course, is they have a system where they say, you know, you want to do the regional or continental championships the year before FISM, and you win with your act, and then you compete the next year. But as lovely as that sounds, magic is such a fluid art form.
Yeah.
It's very unlikely that one act you do is going to be exactly the same the next year. In fact, it's probably a bad thing, you know, because no acts are perfect. And your act was an example of an act that was like created pretty much the day before. And then again, when we're talking with Dom about his AGT act, when he did the act with Tapeface, there, and that was again practicing in the foyer before going on national TV.
Yeah, and that's one of those big things that I was about to say that I wish more people understood, but that's really not what it is. I just feel I notice so many people, and this includes my past self, if I can rewind 10, 15 years ago, who are held back from attempting great things or big things by this idea that they're not ready or they're not up to it, or, oh no, it needs to be polished and ready. Like that's not how most things happen. Some things do happen that way, but most things are just the people involved barely know what they're doing. They're getting by the skin of their teeth. They've got drive and vision and plans, but it all ends up being kind of all over the place behind the scenes. And if people knew that, I think they'd be more likely to go for it and take a crack at it and have a swing.
Yeah, because I mean, how many acts have you ever done that were polished and ready?
I think maybe one once, but that was because it actually had a script and a director and was arguably a 5-minute theater piece, and it was 5 minutes. So I was thinking about the short and sweet theater festival, and even that was put together in the week leading up to it. Like, it was polished and ready, but it was still kept changing right up until the deadline.
That was in New York, wasn't it?
No, that was in Melbourne. That was the Melbourne short and sweet.
Oh, right, yeah. Oh, you did also get a special highly commended prize in New York.
I did for, in New York? What was in New York? Possibly. I might have
2013 is a long time ago.
What happened in 2013? I literally have a text file somewhere that I've sort of gone through because I keep forgetting stuff of what happened each year that were these noteworthy events.
It gets like that. There's so many things that happen. The thing is that what you're talking about with, you know, people being held back because they're afraid, oh, it's not ready, it's not good enough. That's sort of what MagicSports is all about. You know, embracing failure and accepting failure as just another way to succeed.
Yeah, completely. I sort of think of it as, I mean, if I didn't have aspirations and want to achieve things in life and have, you know, friendships and relationships with other people and actually pay rent, I'd be playing video games nonstop. Like, that's what I would be doing. I'd be playing video games, board games, card games. I'd be gaming. That's what I want to be doing. And I still, in many ways, model life by the principles of like RPGs and like dice and randomness, because it's a really good set of heuristics because it's simpler. It's the simplification of life, but there's good principles.
There's rules.
Yeah. And one of those things is go into random encounters to gain experience points, because that's how you level up and get better. If it will give you experience points, do it, because then you get experience points. And that's the most valuable thing that exists in the world of an RPG. And it's real life's not dissimilar. Whether you win or lose or whatever, will you gain more XP at the end of it? Yes, good, then do it. And that will usually be the right choice. Not always, but it's a good rule of thumb. Over time, you'll become more hardcore. And
that brings us very nicely into your latest project.
Oh boy. Okay. So I hope this goes well. Who the hell knows? No one knows how anything's going to work out.
But you're taking a shot.
Yeah, exactly. Taking a solid swing at it. Basically, about almost exactly a year ago, myself and a magician friend and a couple of game designer friends realized that jigsaw puzzles are a market that is very mature and doing well. Like it's always popular, and was not, basically a game designer friend was going, what if you got jigsaw puzzles that just had really good art on them? Because most jigsaw puzzles get some piece of copyright-free art or stock art or a Thomas Kincaid painting or whatever that's nice, and whack it on the same cut pattern and done. That's it. Good creative meeting, everyone. Take lunch. That's how most jigsaw puzzles go. Mm. And the big revelation is most jigsaw puzzles, when you do them, the piece of art looks great as a finished image, but not, and this is now actually me lapsing into script because we've been filming Kickstarter videos recently. So we've like really got the messaging figured out. The whole image looks great, but 1,000th of it looks boring. It's just a smudge of color. Hmm. And because when you do a jigsaw puzzle, you spend, for a 1,000-piece puzzle, probably 8 to 10 hours over the course of it, looking at the pieces, not the nice thing. You're looking at the crappy bit, not the good bit. And that seems topsy-turvy. And so the idea was to commission artists to do fine, little detail-focused art. So you're enjoying it at the piece level while you're doing the puzzle rather than at the full thing. And then the full thing looks great too. And that was the core idea. That was what was pitched to us. And we went, oh yeah, that is a good idea. And then I went, holy crap, wait a minute. Because I had been doing a lot of work over 4 or 5 years on geometric vanishes, on all these different sort of geometric vanishing piece, the vanishing leprechauns and all those different ideas and the missing square puzzles. And I've always been kind of fascinated by those. I think they're really interesting. And I keep thinking there's some potential there for something, I don't know what. And I've done a bunch of work on those to kind of optimize them a bit, because most of the versions out there had what I think are different failings or omissions in them. I was trying to create a version that had the best of all the worlds, and I'd come up with some cool stuff on how to make the geometry of them better. And I realized, oh my God, wait a minute. I think you could apply that to a jigsaw puzzle. If you, and thus was born the Magic Puzzle Company. And we started working on our first series of 3 puzzles that all use the same geometric sort of illusion thing. So you do the puzzle, you get delighted by the small, adorable art, so it's much more fun than an average jigsaw puzzle, and you do it, and it's great. And then when you finish it, you open a secret envelope, or you open an envelope that comes with it, says, do not open until you finish the puzzle. And inside are instructions on how to rearrange these chunks of puzzle. And suddenly a hole appears in the center, magically, amazing. And then you open the inner envelope, and minor spoiler, there are more pieces that now fill in that gap with a twist ending that blends perfectly into the artwork.
Wow.
So over the past year, we've been working on the design for this, how to get them made, how to get them printed. We've had to get whole new factory manufacturing methods, because this is very different from how a normal jigsaw puzzle works. Then find artists, commission them, work with them, explain to them the very complex constraints it takes on the art to make all the things work, which I put together these lengthy artist guides on how to explain to them. Here's how to do it, and then back and forth with them to kind of train them through it. And we are now, as if people are watching this in early May, right now it should have just gone live on Kickstarter for the Magic Puzzle Company Series 1, Magical Jigsaw Puzzles.
So you have been spending your lockdown time very productively.
Yeah, massively. Well, as soon as quarantine hit, which was an absurdly, insanely good timing, because we were already planning to launch about now. Like, this was the original plan from going back months. And I had got back to LA. I didn't have anything planned, because it was like, right, let's get this finished. We put so much work into this, in between all the other things I've been working on and other projects, and the Glitches in Reality show and the Magic Smackdown show and the Shutagawa show. But in the background, just chipping away, getting these made, getting them designed. And I went, right, clearing a month just to get it over the edge. And then suddenly the world goes nuts in demand for jigsaw puzzles. And
they're completely sold out in many shops.
Yeah. And we're just going, damn, like, if you could give someone some advice right now, it'd be step 1, invent a time machine. Step 2, go back in time a year and start work on a revolutionary jigsaw puzzle company design, so that by the time you've got it ready, because it will take a lot to get these to happen, they're ready to launch in the pandemic. So that's where we are now, where, again, literally in the process right now of getting it off on Kickstarter. It should be there by the time you see this. Go check it out, Magic Puzzle Company, Series 1. And we have more ideas for future. We're planning to release more and more different jigsaw puzzles with surprising or magical or illusory or creative twists to them over time.
So if people sign up and kick into the Kickstarter project now, when can they expect their first puzzle?
That's a great question. Probably potentially as early as a month, potentially as long as 2 months. But so it's not immediately, but not far. We've already done a lot of the pre-work on the manufacturing. We've already got like proofs. We've had the factory make prototypes that they've sent us to test them. It's just now going into mass production mode. And
So you'll be ready for the second wave of the pandemic in America.
I mean, who the heck knows, right? Probably. Yeah, probably. The world is burning.
So you haven't really stepped outside your house, I assume, for a long time. So you don't really know what's going on outside.
I have made a roughly once weekly trek to the grocery store to stock up on fresh produce. But that is it. I have been basically, I've been just 9 to 5 balls to the wall on getting these puzzles made and finalized. And there are so many things that go into making a physical product manufactured that you can't even imagine until you've really done it. And these are like we have 3 puzzles. They're all the same sort of magical gimmick, but by different artists. So it's 3 different artists' approach to the idea. And they're all really cool in different ways. It's been really fun working with great artists on it. And it's such a true collaboration between so many different fields. And each one of those puzzles, to get them, the factory needs 19 different files in terms of like PDFs and Illustrator files and TIFF files for the artwork and like a vector file for the die line. So it's 19 files per puzzle that all have to be checked and perfect because we can't F this up because we're going to make a lot of them, hopefully. So it's just been so much of that.
Talk about a passive income. That's fantastic.
I know. I mean, that's the dream, right? That is absolutely the dream, to try and get that together. I mean, my personal dream would be, my God, if this could become the primary income stream and Magic could become a high tier secondary gig. I mean, as you know, being a hobbyist in Magic is often the best place to be.
You can pick and choose when you want to work.
Right? Oh, that'd be amazing. It'd be so good.
So if you then said, okay, I don't have to do cruises. I might do cruises if I want to do cruises, if I'm in the mood to do cruises.
You know, like once every 3-4 months or so. You know, it'd be a fun thing. You know, work time it so you can bring someone along. It's good. Yeah.
And then you'd look at other projects like you're mentioning, you know, the one with Shoot. Now, what's the Magic Smackdown? I'm not really familiar with that one.
This is something that I, again, sort of accidentally developed with some magician friends in LA. And we just kind of went, Hollywood Fringe was coming up, the submission deadlines. And we went, you know what? It'd be fun to do a group show. Just, it's fun to, you know, doing material, working on stuff together is fun. You know, giving it like the old Castle days before it got kind of weird in the last few years, where you would like do stuff and give each other notes and brainstorm ideas. And it was really collaborative. And the Castle has tragically lost a lot of that, at least for me in the last few years. And there's a bunch of factors. But so we thought, let's just put a show on, just whatever, group show. And then at the time, I'd been working on that mass audience smartphone mind reading thing that used to way back, that was 5-6 years ago. And that was okay. That was sort of a good trick. It wasn't great. It was good. It was that weird mid-ground. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't fantastic. But I realized I could potentially adapt the technology behind that to make like a live interactive voting app. And the idea was make an app, because I've always thought, getting back to sort of constructive criticisms of Magic competitions, the right way to do a Magic competition is you get a lay crowd and you get them to vote. Yeah. And you get them to vote by saying, you can have a ticket to a full performance of one of these magicians. Which one do you want it to be? And that's how you vote. Because that's, for me, where the rubber hits the road in Magic. It's how do you amaze and delight a lay crowd? That's it for me, the beginning and the end of what matters about Magic. And I often thought it would be fun to do that kind of Magic competition. I would never bother organizing it myself because I don't care enough to do the nightmare that you well know is organizing any kind of event. Yeah. But I sort of thought, oh, that could be fun. Like get the audience, you know, American Idol and everything were really popular at the time. And people love them a blood sport competition. People love them a competition. Oh boy, do they. And so I thought that could give us a hook and it could be actually kind of fun. So I spent like the weekend, like 19 hours, like modifying this software into an interactive voting website that people could just use. They don't have to download an app. They can just go to the website. If anyone's played Jackbox, it's very similar to that. You just go to the website, you put in the code, and now you can interact with the thing. I was doing that before Jackbox was. I was there. I was cool. Whatever. Didn't monetize it, but hey, that's my fault. And so I made this, and at the time we couldn't come up with a name for the show, so we just called it Name This Magic Show. And the theme was the winner would get to name the show that night, which I don't think was actually a very good conceit, but it was what we had at the time, and it was fine.
Not that great a prize, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it was really fun, and it worked really well, and it was a great concept. And like there was so much engagement with the audience, because this audience literally had so much more agency than an audience ever would in any show, let alone a magic show. Even in an improv show, you're usually only getting suggestions from a few people who really have agency. Whereas in this, every single person gets a vote. And what we realized the first night we did it, because we'd rehearsed it, but until the rubber hits the road, you don't know what you got. And we did the first round, and the votes came in, and just before I hit the button to display the votes on the screen above the stage, we realized there was so much tension we were feeling, because we hadn't really faced the reality of, what if one of us gets 0? Like, what if the numbers come up and one of us has got nothing? Like, that's going to be awkward. And we realized the audience could feel that we were feeling it, and the tension was so real. And that's so the opposite of what you get in most theater of any kind, or comedy or magic or whatever. This genuine, real tension, or like, fuck. And so it was great. It was really fun. And we made a rule that none of us were allowed to do the same set each night. We had to change at least one of our routines, if not more, so that we could never fall into a predictable pattern of, we know kind of this one's a bit stronger in the first round and so on. And since then, we've kept evolving it and working on it and packaging it up and improving it, and actually throwing in increasingly large number of improv elements to some of the rounds, because MagicSports is great. Well, I mean, as we've discussed repeatedly, I think many of the MagicSports games are great. Yes. I don't necessarily like all of them, and that's what's cool. We've incorporated the bits that fit well in this kind of show, because the core concept of improvised magic is a really cool concept to inspire creativity and create genuine drama.
Well, I know all the people in Melbourne are thinking, Simon, Magic Festival 2021, we want the Smackdown.
I'm down. Let's do it.
Bring the Smackdown to Melbourne.
We'll talk production budgets and get back to you. We'll figure something out.
Absolutely. Well, that also depends if Americans are allowed to fly back to Australia at that point.
Well, yeah, you're right. I just realized my Australian passport is due to expire in July, and I just have to get it renewed. But that might be more difficult than I'd anticipated previously.
It may
that
be.
was one of my list of things to do.
Just plan 2 weeks of stuff you can do on your own when you arrive.
Yeah. Oh, got plenty. You know how long it takes to design? Do you know how long it takes to hand make a jigsaw puzzle die line cut pattern? Oh boy. Because that was one of the things to do the geometric stuff. I mean, I got all the math and the math. I've been in America too long, talking to Americans. All the maths figured out. But then we still had to start with a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle pattern. And then I had to add in these internal diagonal lines to do it. And that just took forever. It's just so, because it's a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle die. And by the time we'd finished, I had personally hand modified every single cut line in that entire cut pattern over the course of several weeks and now months. As then we did our prototype, but then from that we discovered there were some problems with some of the nub shapes. So I went back through and fixed them all and went through it one by one.
But I bet at the end of it, you felt incredibly satisfied.
Oh yeah, it's really good.
Yeah.
It's deeply, profoundly satisfying. And there's something I'm really enjoying about the concept of just having now a thing that I've helped make. And it's even more satisfying because it's with so many other people who have contributed to this thing. And now it's going out into the world. And it's a really good feeling because I'm really proud of this one. It's one of the rare things I've worked on in my life that I'm going, yeah, this is great. This is a really cool thing.
Well, we hope everyone's going to get behind it and jump into the Kickstarter saying you are ready to go, and they can have one of these amazing puzzles in a month or two.
Yeah, as soon as we can. We are doing everything we can right now to try and get these made ASAP because, I mean, we don't know how to make N95 masks. We don't know how to make ventilators. We sure as heck don't know how to make a COVID-19 vaccine. But believe me, we know how to make some damn jigsaw puzzles that are really good. So that's what we're focusing on doing right now.
Well, it's been great chatting with you, and I know you're going to get back to more.
Well, right now, the thing I'm doing at the moment, we had a brief scare with the second round of prototypes we made, where ironically, the first round went so well. Again, you can have a sort of a success failure where something goes so well, you didn't realize how lucky you were that it did go well.
Yeah.
The first prototypes were great and had a few problems, but we fixed them. Second prototypes were slightly misaligned, which hadn't happened on the first ones. And it was weird because, long story short, because I just realized it's going to be a multiple hour story to explain jigsaw die line manufacturing theory. I've been writing a quality assurance guide on what the factory has to do to check the alignment of the blades on the cuts, because it's actually quite unintuitive, so much so that we hadn't even realized what it would be that they'd have to do. We figured out most of it, but there was one bit we hadn't thought about that could go wrong. So I've been writing these guides of like, check that this is there, check that matches that, and check that this matches this, and watch out for this. Things that we didn't even realize going in to make sure these puzzles are good. So
this is where your magic brain is playing in.
Well, yeah, and you know what? This is it. This is one of the lines we're currently considering for the actual Kickstarter video that may or may not make it in by the time you see this, is that magic is one of the very few fields in the world where people at their best, like the cool, awesome, powerful, creative magicians, are willing to put in 90% more effort to make something 1% better.
Yeah.
And that's such a rare trait in any field of discipline. And it's one of the things we've realized. I mean, the tagline for the company is jigsaw puzzles designed by magicians. Now, on the surface, that just sounds cool and whimsical and great. But what that means to us and people who get it is that means these have had 1,000 times more care, effort, and attention paid to every microscopic piece of minutia about every detail of it, every color, every angle, everything. Because that's what it takes to do magic well, is that level of almost psychotic attention and care about every part of it. And that's what we're trying to bring to these.
Well, it sounds amazing. I'm going to go straight to the site myself right now and have a look at it. But thank you so much for chatting with us, and good luck with your projects, whatever they may be.
Good luck with bringing these Laneway theater sessions home.
See you later.
You're so close, Tim. You're so close.
I'm so close. Bye-bye.
Tinkling, please stop in the back. All right.
Probably the campest direction I've heard all day.